right, I'm Bob Sargent. I'm a master bander. I'm also a hummingbird bander. We band all kinds of birds, but our great love, of course, is hummingbirds. But I am a master bander. It qualifies me to apply these tiny bands to the legs of these hummingbirds. Here our study is long-term. Our permit comes from the Bird Banding Laboratory in Laurel, Maryland. We also have a permit from the state of Mississippi, where Strawberry Plains is located. But Martha and I have about, Martha Sargent, my wife, and I have about 20 plus years of banding experience, and in that time we probably banded something over 50,000 of these tiny birds, these ruby-throated hummingbirds. But we're going to be here for the next few days, along with some other master banders that are part of our group, our nonprofit organization that studies these birds, and we're going to be capturing and banding these birds for the folks here. All right, we have several different kind of traps. This is a small portable trap that we use. We have another 3 gang that we use here at Strawberry Plains. By the way, this is a marvelous place, Strawberry Plains. We banded many hundreds of hummers here over the years. But what we do is we take the feeders that these guys normally have up here for the birds to feed on, and we use their feeder as the bait for our traps. As you can see here, we've just hung this one inside the trap, and this is a drop door. And our Mr. James Bell, one of our fine master banders from the Picayune, Mississippi area is here, and he's going to be doing our trapping today. But what he will do is he'll watch this trap, and when the hummingbird goes in and perches here to feed, he'll release this string, this piece of fishing line, and that door will drop. And then from then on, it's really easy. We either get it out through an access door in the back of the cage, or we simply open this up just a little bit and reach in here and get it. I would like to caution your viewers that to operate a trap, anytime you're capturing neotropical migrant birds, and ruby-throated is a neotropical migrant bird, you have to have state and federal permits to do this. So I want to strongly urge your viewers not to try to do this operation at home, because the feds will put you under the jail if you do. So keep it legal, come here, watch it, and have fun. But this trapping method is normally very, very effective. We're a little bit low on birds here today. We don't know whether that'll carry over into tomorrow or not. But if it does, we'll make do with what we got.
Just in a little soft bag there where he can be safe. Get plenty of air.
What we're doing here at Strawberry Plains, and we've got several guys on our banding crew that are here, we're attempting to capture and band these tiny ruby-throated hummingbirds. These hummingbirds are a part of the population will nest here, but many of the birds that we're catching here, as you can see, we have several already here for the presentation, but a lot of these birds that we're catching are probably birds that hatched somewhere in Canada. They could have traveled that far, or they could have hatched right here on Strawberry Plains property, or anywhere in between. They have a huge range, but what we're attempting to do is to track the migration of these birds, to determine the routes that they travel, how long it takes them to travel from point A to point B, and also the fidelity they have to these migratory routes. We can do that only because we're allowed, permitted, federal and state permits, to put one of these tiny bands that you see on this, one of these tiny, tiny aluminum bands. Now these bands are numbered, and they're exclusively numbered. No 2 bands will ever be the same number. These tiny bands that I'm rotating with my finger, it actually takes 5,500 of these bands to weigh 1 ounce. So you can see for the bird, it doesn't affect his movements, doesn't affect his breeding in any way. But what we hope to do for the throngs that will come here to observe the banding is to give them a chance to see these birds up close and watch this process of applying the band. We will be taking a series of measurements. We will weigh the birds. We will look for molt sequence on them while we have them in the hand, and we will also check them for fat. These birds gain a lot of weight prior to migration because they'll fly nonstop across the Gulf of Mexico. So we'll give them, in essence, a complete physical exam while we have them in the hand. So to start this process, I personally use a magnifier for reading the numbers and being sure I don't harm the birds. But we're going to take one band off of this special pin and open it with a tapestry needle. We'll change it from a round shape, like a 0, into a C shape. We'll examine the band while we got it on to be sure of the number and be sure it matches our record keeping, and it does. And then we have special banding pliers. These are just a small set of needle nose pliers that have been altered to close this one size band. And I will mount the band in the end of this banding plier and then select a bird from the birds that we have here, and we will take it out of the bag and put a band on it. To hold the bird, I use the toe of a stocking, in this case, to hold it in place. This bird is really fat and really healthy. It's robust and round. This is an adult female, has no dark tips on the tail feathers, all white and badly worn. That means it's a female. First thing I will do is check it in the hand to see if it's wearing a band, and it's not. So at this time what we'll do is secure it in the toe of this stocking, and the first step in our process of banding the bird will be to get the band on the leg. And to do that, we actually hold this tiny bird by the toe. That seems a little delicate. You don't think of holding hummingbirds by their toes, but in fact that is what we teach our banders. And that quickly, if you would like to look, you can see this tiny numbered band on the leg of this adult female ruby-throated hummingbird. Now while we've got her in hand, she's in perfect health, very robust. It's my opinion, is the way she feels, if she wanted to take off from here and fly all the way to the Gulf Coast or beyond, or perhaps even across the Gulf of Mexico, as fat as she is. What I'm doing now is measuring the wing. Her wing is 45.78 millimeters. We will also measure her tail, the length of her tail. Now this is the least accurate of all the measurements that we will be taking, and the tail is 27.6. And what I'm doing now is actually measuring the length of the bill, sometimes called the culmen. The culmen on this bird is 16.49 millimeters. What we like to do is to process these birds as promptly as we can. Now what we're going to do is to weigh it first. It weighs 4.38 grams, and that is very fat indeed. And if you'll pardon me a moment, never have all the tools I need. What we'll use is a drinking straw. We're going to blow the feathers back. I'll try to hold the bird where you can see a little better. But we're going to blow the stomach feathers back and examine it for fat, because the fat it needs to migrate across the Gulf of Mexico is stored underneath the skin. A fancy word for it is subcutaneous fat. I personally think the hummingbirds like this, by the way. I tell people they smile when we blow their feathers back. A large roll of fat, so we would score this bird as having about a 1.5 fat, 1.5. That's on a scale of 0 to 3. And if you look closely, you can see she's wide here in the middle. She's a right fat old girl, to tell you the truth. But these birds, unlike what you might think with training, these birds are very easy to handle. These birds that we have in our hand here today, tomorrow, these birds can be 300 or 400 miles downstate, or can be hard on the coast, and some in fact are probably fat enough they could be across the Gulf of Mexico sometime tomorrow. But these are trans-Gulf migrants, meaning they fly across the Gulf. I'm going to release this bird and get us another bird, okay? Not at all afraid. One of the things that I think your viewers would perhaps like to know is why we actually band these birds, beyond the idea of learning enough about them to protect them, be sure that we can preserve them. But after years of banding birds and work, volunteer work in the conservation community, I am totally convinced that what we do to the smallest of these birds, we actually do to ourselves. If we can't learn enough to alter our behavior to preserve their habitat. If the world becomes unlivable for the tiniest of these birds, like ruby-throated hummingbirds, I'm convinced in the long term it won't be a fit place for human beings to live as well.